All right, let's talk about what might just be the biggest, most anticipated financial event in the history of, well, space. I'm talking about the colossal, upcoming IPO of SpaceX.
So the number being thrown around is, honestly, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. $1.5 trillion. Yep, trillion with a T. That's the valuation they're shooting for when they go public, which is projected for sometime in 2026.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, wait a minute, how on earth is a rocket company worth more than the entire economy of most countries? And that's exactly the right question to ask. The answer is, you have to stop thinking about SpaceX as just a rocket company.
It's really more of a modern financial giant built on this really unique and powerful model. So let's break it down. Let's deconstruct this thing and see how all the different pieces fit together to get to that crazy number.
And look at this. This revenue breakdown for 2024 tells a really surprising story, right? A huge chunk of it, we're talking 58%, that's Starlink, their global internet service. The famous rockets, the launches, that's only about 30%. So right away, you can see this is not just a rocket company anymore.
Okay, so here's the absolute key to understanding SpaceX. You've got to think of it as two different businesses basically welded together. On one side, you have a super reliable cash-generating engine that's just chugging along paying all the bills. And on the other side, you have the high-risk, high-reward dream machine that's busy trying to build our multiplanetary future.
So let's dig into that first part, the cash engine. We're talking about the parts of the business that are already out there right now, completely dominating their markets and frankly, just printing money. And Starlink is the absolute superstar here. I mean, its growth is just explosive. You see, we're going from 4.6 million subscribers this year, and they're projecting it'll hit almost 14 million by the time the IPO happens. You know, this is exactly the kind of predictable, steady, recurring revenue that Wall Street goes crazy for. And to keep up with all that growth, their production scale is just, it's mind-boggling. Get this, they are making 170,000 of those little Starlink dishes every single week. That's how you build a planet-wide utility at, warp speed. All right, then you've got the other part of the cash engine, the Falcon rocket program, the workhorse. And this table just perfectly illustrates their advantage. Look at the price per launch, $67 million. That's less than half of what their competitors charge. And at the same time, their profit margins are way, way higher. So what's the secret sauce? It's one word, reusability.
You gotta remember, before SpaceX came along, every single rocket was basically trash after one flight. You'd fly it once, and then it would just fall into the ocean. It was insane. SpaceX came in and turned these things into reusable vehicles that can fly over and over again more than 20 times. Sometimes they can turn one around in just 21 days. It didn't just change the game, it completely rewrote the rules for the economics of space.
And that is the huge strategic takeaway here. It's not just about saving money. It's about making access to space totally routine. It's predictable, it's frequent. They've basically turned launching stuff into orbit into a global delivery service, kind of like FedEx for space. And that reliable cash cow is exactly what pays for the big dream.
Okay, so now that we've seen the moneymaker, let's talk about the dream machine it's funding. This is the multi-planetary moonshot. We're talking about the enormous, high-risk, but unbelievably high-reward bet on Starship. This is the part that justifies that crazy trillion-dollar price tag.
So what is Starship? Simply put, it's the most powerful rocket ever conceived. It's designed to be 100% reusable, and its entire purpose is to make humanity a multiplanetary species. But from a business perspective, here's the killer detail. It's designed to cut launch costs by another 80%. That's on top of the savings from Falcon 9. It's a total paradigm shift.
And look, this isn't just some PowerPoint fantasy. The momentum is real. You can see it right here. The test program is moving at a breakneck pace. They're ticking off these huge milestones every few months, and they are getting closer and closer to actual operational launches.
Okay, so if Starship works, it unlocks these gigantic new markets. Analysts have a fancy term for this. They call them real options. But really, it just means massive future business ideas that are literally impossible without this specific piece of tech. We're talking about building a logistics network for the Moon and Mars, point-to-point travel on Earth in under an hour, or even something wild like launching entire AI data centers into orbit. This is where all that extra massive valuation really comes from.
And this brings us right back to the central strategy for the IPO. By keeping both parts of the company together, those huge, steady profits from the internet business can directly fund the insane R&D costs of the Starship program.
It all happens on a single balance sheet under one roof.
But we have to be really clear about something. This whole thing is a gamble, a huge trillion-dollar gamble. And if you're going to look at this seriously, you have to weigh all that incredible potential against some very real and very big risks.
So when investors look at this, they aren't just betting on one single outcome. They're playing the odds. You can see it here. There's about a 50% chance they hit that base case, the 1.5 trillion. But there's also a 20% chance that things go wrong and it's worth a lot less. And on the flip side, there's a 30% chance that everything goes perfectly and this thing is worth way more.
So what are these risks? Well, risk number one is just pure execution. It's the big one. The entire optimistic bull case scenario depends entirely on Starship becoming a reliable, routine, reusable vehicle. If they hit major delays, or if it just doesn't work as planned, that whole valuation model starts to fall apart, fast.
Then there's what's called key man risk. And in this case, it's huge. With 79% of the voting control, the company's entire destiny is basically tied to one person, Elon Musk. For public market investors who like stability and predictability, that much power concentrated in one person's hands is a major risk factor.
And finally, you've got risks that are totally outside of their control. Geopolitical risks, international regulators could change the rules for satellite constellations overnight. And you can't forget about the competition. China, in particular, is moving fast to build its own rival megaconstellation. That could lead to a crowded orbit and maybe even pricing wars down the line.
So when you boil it all down, it comes to this. SpaceX is being valued today based on a future that isn't here yet. Yes, its cash machine is incredibly powerful. But that $1.5 trillion question, that's a bet that they can actually make humanity a multiplanetary species. So the real question isn't just whether Starship will deliver on that future, it's what happens to all of us if it actually does.